I hope you're having a lovely afternoon. Thank you for joining us on TV47. My name is Tracy Mokami, and this is In Other News, the show where we bring you news in the eyes of journalists. Today I'm joined by my panel, social distancing. I feel cold, they are not here with me. Linda Alela, we have Keith Atito, and we have Alan Owino. Thank you so much for joining us. So I think our top story has to come from the president was just on air a few minutes ago trying to give us updates on the COVID-19 status in Kenya. I think I'm going to start with Alan. What were the pick-up points for you from his speech?
Well, with regards to the state address that has just been given, I think the bigger points was just from the talk on the public transportation and all that, and how he's made this plea to these people to actually make it an easy transition for those who are still not able to access different places without necessarily using the likes of Uber and all that. So for the guys who are using public transport, I think the plea was just to make it an easier transition, and also to the people who are using public transport to adhere to those rules of not necessarily sitting close to each other, because it happened to me. Today I was shocked. I was actually expecting the matatu industry to not follow those guidelines, but today when I got to the bus stop, I got into a matatu. It was well spaced and all that, and yeah, it was good. So far so good, and I think it was a good measure taken up by the transport and the public transport sector. Yeah,
I also saw that he spoke of the private sector and how they can be roped in this fight against this virus. Linda, tell us what are some of the measures you think that the private sector, what are the changes that we expect to see in the coming days?
All right, thank you so much, Tracy. Before you even get to that, you all acknowledge that there is always that need to get constant communication from the presidency's office, because then you realize that in such a state where there's some level of panic and worry, there's always that need to hear from what the bosses, from what the heads sort of think. So it is necessary, and it's inevitable for the president to constantly address the nation, in as much as maybe we're getting these addresses and updates coming from, of course, the health ministry. But that aside, looking at the aspect of bringing in or incorporating the private sector, I think that is key. And I think that has always been the driving force where we talk about public-private partnership. And you realize that the private sector sort of has some stamina that would come in handy in boosting the country as it stands right now. Remember, there's been news coming in this morning in regards to how strained we are economically. So if the private sector then will come in to give a boost, not necessarily on aspect of finances, I think it's going to be good. Something that we'll be discussing on, we'll be touching on as we proceed with this broadcast is on the aspect of Alibaba coming on board and, giving some aid to respective countries or different countries is a clear indication that this is a private, being from the aspect of China. But then again, he's coming in to sort of give a hand towards this particular pandemic that has become something that is global. So indeed, it is almost inevitable for the country to assume that it would be able to deal with this without incorporating the help of the private sector, which is key in driving the nation.
I am really curious, Keith, how was your ride to work this morning?
The roads are very clear, let's start from there. And on my way here, I took note of the fact that yesterday I was in a crowded matatu. Yesterday morning coming into the office, my matatu 14-seater had 16 people. This morning, coming to the office, 32-seater, 15 people. It was so special, I was actually dancing. And they've made it such that it's a comfortable ride, it's a very free thing.
I think I'm going to cut you short, Keith. I'm told there's a technical hitch with your sound. I don't know Alan, how was your ride to work?
My ride to work today, as I said earlier on, it was amazing. For the first time I felt that the money, although I was overcharged for a place that I'm usually paying about 70 shillings, Bob, I paid 120, so that's like a 50 bob hike in that. Although I was overcharged, I felt like today I paid for my full services because, I'm a tall brother, I'm 6'0", so how I usually sit like this, today I had the opportunity of sitting like this and just being comfortable. So despite all the troubles that we're having with COVID-19 virus. I think the measures that are being taken with regards to transportation is ideal and appropriate. I enjoyed my ride to work today. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think we need to listen to what the CS Mutahi had to say yesterday, just to give our viewers the context in which Matatu fares have hiked today and the changes that we have seen in the private sector.
In order to give effect to the social distance requirement in public transport sector, all public service vehicles must adhere to the directive issued on Friday, March the 20th.
Kazungu Hari,
Wait,
Sauti in studio, Sauti in studio.
Licenses.
mbona hujaniuliza hiyo maneno? Tracy, mbona hujaniuliza hiyo ya matatu? Namna hii.
Who is present with us here today has been directed to enforce this directive. Lastly, having noted the non-compliance of individuals, may they be in religious organizations, may they be in other social gatherings, as issued on the 20th of March, the NAC has directed the suspension of all church, mosques, funerals, and funerals and other social gatherings, and funerals are restricted to immediate family members only.
Linda, I don't know if you can tell us the public transport system. Where are we with implementing the directives that the CS gave yesterday?
First of all, I don't understand how Keith and Alan got to enjoy their rides this morning, because to me it doesn't make sense when you're told to sort of, you're riding, it's okay, there's that social distance, which literally is not even the standard that is expected, honestly speaking.
Yes,
and even worse is
meters,
that you have to cough extra to ensure that at least you get to enjoy this ride. And by the way, ironically, if you do the math, you realize that actually it's that time when the Matatu guys are making a kill. So, sincerely speaking, if I was to weigh in on how comfortable my ride would have been or it was for other people, reality is that it wasn't as expected. So we still have a long way. It's just a way of sort of fleecing some cash from, an extra cash from Kenyans. And to me, that needs to be looked into, because then when you look at this directives, and I think it's very necessary that as they issue these directives, they go in depth into understanding what will be the aftermath. Because today, Kenyans are complaining, it's been pretty much expensive, and you realize that there are areas where the fare has not been hiked or the prices have not been hiked. So it's a catch-22. Like, honestly, why would they do that?
We actually spoke to our producer Kawera Gedenji, spoke to some of the Matatu people who are involved in the transport sector today, and I think we have their sentiments and what they had to say. Maybe we can listen in just to try and understand how they are rationalizing the hiking of the prices today.
Mimi niko Dawaganaki Sacco, nimekuwa nikifanya nayo, lakini sasa hivi tumekuwa affected na hii mambo ya corona sana So ningesema serikali tuangalie sana hii sekta ya matatu. Juu it's either we hike the fares ama washukisha mafuta. Juu kama saa hii ukibeba na 30 bob hapo mahesabu yako haingiani. Hata ukibeba 100 mahesabu haitaingiana. So we have to be considered as a matatu sector.
Mimi ni dereva hapa kwa Rofa Sacco. Sasa kulingana na hiyo kusema tubebe watu wachache, kuna shida. Jukaa sasa naidaga akakaa nalipisha 30. Intoto ya watu 13 huwa ni 390. Sasa nikibeba na hiyo 30 napata 240. Hapo kwenda na kurudi gari inatumia 200 kwa mafuta. Sasa unaona 40 ndio inabaki yangu. Sasa after the day hiyo 40 hata ukienda trip 10 ni 400. Hata sio pesa unawezekea mwenyewe na yako. Sasa chenye ningeuliza ni serikali ipunguze bei ya mafuta. Ikipunguza bei ya mafuta, mambo itakuwa sawa.
Those are some of the sentiments by people in the matatu industry, and I think we can take a short break right now, and when we come back, tell us how was your flight? No, how was your journey this morning to work? Tag us #TV47KE #in other news, and when we come back, we will be sampling some of the feedback that you have sent to us.
mbona
Thank you for staying with us. My name is Tracy Mokami. This is In Other News. And just before we went on break, we were talking about the matatu industry and the measures that they have taken for us to be able to to social distance. And some of the things that are coming out very strongly include the fact that these people are not in for the kill. The problem is, with the reduced number of people in these vehicles, the prices need to be marked up a little bit just to be able to ensure that we are doing social distancing as we should. Now, the other story in our newsroom today is quarantine and how and why we need to be forced to social distance and to quarantine in the event we find ourselves exposed to this virus. We have a short clip that is, I have seen it, is actually hilarious. I think we can let you in on the clip, then discuss forced quarantine. Let's have the video. Linda, Deputy Governor, this is what should have been done. This is from the word go.
See, like guys have gotten irate, first of all, with the fact that, this is a leader, a government official, who would just come and, by the way, just decides to overlook the directive that has been given. It is absurd that in this time and age that we still have to be pushed, we still have to be forced into that level of self-quarantine. Like, we do not see the essence, the importance of this. The fact that we actually are doing it just because we've seen what has happened to Italy is something that leaves a lot to be desired. Because then, as always, we are reactive. Africans, we are reactive, which is something that we are really hoping that would run away from that. Because then, it is for our own good, for crying out loud. It should not get to that point where you have to get clips circulating, reminding you of the essence of this, the importance of this. For crying out loud, it is for your very own good.
It actually is. And earlier on, I was looking at some of the things that are happening across the world, and people are running away. People are running away from quarantine. Why do you think that is, Alan? What have you seen?
Okay, before I don't point that out. The first thing is that the only medication that we've been able to prove that is working, it's self-quarantine. That's well and good take. But coming from a logical perspective, here's my question. People are speaking about self-quarantine, right? So let's take an example of my case. Over the weekend, I was home, right? From Friday evening, got back to my place, relaxed, did whatever I did, came Saturday morning, but at some point I had to exit my place to go and get extra supplies. What does that mean? That means that I've literally compromised that self-quarantine. So when guys are speaking about self-quarantine, in itself, it's not that. I think right now, in the times that we're living in, we're just basically surviving on luck and God's grace. Because there's nothing like full quarantine, because at some point you're going to compromise it in some way or the other because you have to exit. So an ideal self-quarantine environment for me would have been this. Say, for example, everybody's at home, right? Then the government and the authorities that are charged with doing certain things come on board and actually have people that have been tested to be negative, and they're the ones who are actually getting the supplies to the people who are self-quarantined at home. Only at that point can you tell me that self-quarantine is an ideal thing that is working. But of now, it's still working. Don't get it twisted. It's still working because it's just reducing it. But if you're actually supposed to escalate it to a level that it can affect change, that's what needs to happen. We need to have it being handled in a different way. But this self-quarantine that we're having, trust me, right now we're just surviving on luck and God's grace.
Tracy, let me look. Just allow me to say this.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with what Alan says in a way. And it would be absurd again for us to overlook the fact of, self-quarantine. Let's just say discipline is key.
Yes,
because then
yes,
it's
it is.
working for China. Remember, they were reporting high cases every other time. But right now, I mean, over like the past 1 week, they've not reported cases.
Yeah.
So that is a clear indication that, yes, if you're disciplined enough to sort of just follow the directives, almost a copy-paste of what is being a directive or is being offered as a directive in China, like just try and do this. But then again, I think the reason why people sort of feel like it's pretty much hard to self-quarantine is because everyone loves their freedom, like freedom to move. Just stay indoors for a week and feel how hectic that thing can be. So I really sort of understand. But then again, brings us to the point of why the government should look at what is possible, what we are able to achieve. Because when you say, okay, sawa, in matatus, let's keep this social distance thing, but then you've not considered the matatu owners, you've not considered how much a loss they're going to make. You equally have not considered the common mwananchi who's set to use this, probably going to work, spending 500 bob, something that they don't even make in a day. It beats logic. So, I mean, we need to come with measures that would be friendly enough, and we look into what would be the outcome before we dish them out and tell people to do that. Because, man, like Alan says, it might just be a toll on us.
And you see, now the problem is, you speak of common mwananchi, and we have been told we will be jailed if we do not follow this. If we do not follow this directive, you be on the street, refuse to social distance, you will find yourself in a tough position.
You cross over to Putin, and then you realize it's even better to be jailed. Cross over to Russia.
And this is what happened with blogger Robert Alive. The government has consistently been telling us avoid messaging that is not appropriate during the coronavirus pandemic, avoid alarmist messages. Alan,
Yes.
the arrest. Do you think you might be arrested for this sentiment?
First things first, the arrest. There's nothing like that's just hype or media hype. That's nonsense. Because let me tell you, from the word go when this quarantine situation began, there's only one thing that needs to happen. Why are you seeing so many cases of people not abiding by the directives? Is that there's some sense of panic within the people, right? So when you're panicking, you tend to be kind of reckless and do things that do not necessarily make sense. So what I feel the government needs to do in our situation is that provide directives that have logic into them. For example, you talked of reducing the number of passengers that began today in a matatu. But if you actually sit down and look into it, if I'm a matatu owner and you've reduced the number of passengers and still expect me to operate at the same level, it beats the same level of fair price, it beats logic. So what needs to happen in this situation is bring everybody on board. These are all the key players in different sectors. That means the oil sector, the water sector, the different sectors, right? Bring them on board so that when you're putting out a directive towards this regard, it means prices of the fuel can also be put down. Now that one is a logical situation to operate in. So yeah, generally what I'm thinking is bring every single person on board. This will help so that we have directives that have logic into them. Because so far with this issue of arresting people, I mean, why? Okay, with this arrest, what does it help to? I don't know what
I
Linda has
think
to say.
it's really important.
Yeah.
Because last week on your show, actually, Alan,
oh yeah,
you are telling us how fake news and inappropriate messaging is affecting the government initiatives to be able to fight this virus. I actually think it's important. We saw issues of church leaders contravening all these directives, telling people go to church. So some of these things, I think arrests are necessary. They are actually necessary, by the way, for people. Kenyans, sisi ni vichwa ngumu,
I don't know. Allow me to come in again.
Yeah.
I don't know how this arrest will be, sort of affected in a way. But yes, we had that coming from the government. And sincerely speaking, to me, I would say it makes sense because then we are at a desperate moment as a country.
Yeah.
And knowing the state that we are in, we all agree that in as much as maybe we might wait or expect the government to give directives that sort of make sense, it becomes hard because then there are things that goes beyond them. And then that's when it comes to a personal initiative, a personal drive survive, you know, as part of the country. Because then again, you can just not expect the government to be able to cater for all these things. But, you know, it makes common sense to say that it's okay. Let's allow our shoes to pinch just for this particular while if it is going to save us more damage. So if you can go to that level and say it's okay, why should it go to a point whereby the government will want to arrest you? And anyway, you know, they actually talked about arresting people who sort of were supposed to be self-quarantining or isolating themselves. So you can imagine, if you are supposed to isolate yourself, then there's some fear that you could be having COVID-19. So in this case, where will they arrest you? They cannot take you to the Kawaida jail and all. I mean, so
it's supposed to be quarantined. It's supposed to be quarantined.
It's supposed to be quarantined. So I think let's just have it as a personal drive.
And this is why I am really mad that we are being told that this comes to a personal level. Yes. This pandemic has really brought out the fact that Kenyans live hand to mouth.
True.
And my problem is the government is also living hand to mouth.
That's sad.
We had 7 billion released by Treasury to be able to handle issues around the pandemic. So ordinarily we need to have a 5 billion kitty that is reserved for contingencies. In case anything happens, this is the anything that happened. Did we have money at Treasury? No. We were low at 2.8 billion shillings. And the problem actually is our leaders, the government, decided to increase expenditures on non-essential things as at last year, even at a point where the CS National Treasury had already informed these ministers, this government, these people in government, please reduce your expenditures. So we find ourselves in a situation where the biggest spending from the government was on hospitality and publicity. Like, what are we publicizing to Alan? What do you think? The government, has it done enough?
Well,
what more can we do?
If I start diving into government and all that kind of politics, that's just a total whole new other story. I don't say it's a waste of time. It's just a whole new story because there's a lot into it and there's always so much inside there. But just with regards to what we're discussing in terms of the COVID-19, first things, you've talked about churches and bars and all that. Come on. I think Kenyans right now, we are better than this. We are better than this. We've seen what has happened in all those other cases. Let's just be a bit smart. I know as a nation, we always tend to joke about a lot of things and see it play out, and it kind of helps the situation. But clubbing, these masses, guy, I saw a church full on Sunday. I was like, are you seriously kidding me? This doesn't even make sense. Like, are you, with all that is going on, you're still having this? No, that one is that. That one is for the Kenyans and for you to actually decide if you want to cross over or to the other side with regards to this alive. So let's just be a bit more careful. In terms of the government, I'd say the only reason we are seeing such slow measures, for lack of a better word to say, is that we haven't necessarily hit the dire and the drastic point. You see, you don't expect the government to make drastic measures if they haven't necessarily witnessed it. You know, as of now, they're treating, it might be 15 cases that are reported, and 15 looks workable compared to the other cases that are out there, which is not the case. So I think the government is kind of taking these slow prerogatives and giving out the directives just based on how they're monitoring this. And so far, I'd say they're doing an okay job, because giving the updates, the state updates and all that, that's a very key and critical bit about treating pandemics, because you actually keep guys on the loop and guys are aware. So far, with regards to our government, so good. It also helped. If you look at an example like Russia, when they first had this, they went and closed their border. They went and closed it. They really acted fast. And that's why in terms of the cases in deaths and the positive and all that, it's not as much as compared to the other countries in that region. So for our case, I'd say we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Yeah.
Alan, who has paid you? Who is paying you to?
Money has been poured.
No.
But anyway,
we are doing okay. Because I mean, if you say the government is not doing much, okay, what are they supposed to do? They've told you.
There's a lot. There's much more that can actually be done.
Please enlighten us, Tracy.
You know,
Yeah.
let's look at the healthcare system. A presser was nurses at Pangani have actually spoken.
Yeah.
Alan, these people are saying
yes.
No preventative measures have been put in place for these nurses. Adequate training has not still been done. and we want to clap for the government
No, I
for
didn't
telling
say
us
that.
You heard what
I
the
didn't-
president
for telling
said.
us to self-quarantine.
Don't get it. Don't get it twisted. Don't even
Yeah?
put words in my mouth. I didn't say we're going to clap for the government.
No,
I
you're saying
said
good job on these people. And
so far, with in terms of the monitoring of the pandemic within our country, so far so good. Because we're dealing with a monster that we don't know nothing. We don't know
Good.
anything about. So I don't think the government has much to play other than to give you directives, the basic directives like social distancing, do this, wash hands. Now, if you're not following that from the government, what else do you expect them to do?
to provide us
Yeah.
with the services that they need to be able to provide. You know, other countries,
Exactly, but you know,
in other countries, Alan, we
I
have
want to
seen the
cut you.
government, we have seen the government come forward and tell
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
yes, now we are going into quarantine.
Yes.
These are some of the measures. We are going to give money for you people to be able to stay at home and all these other measures. Linda,
Are we doing? Okay, well, I think I am really trying to understand Alan's point in the sense that he's saying that we are dealing with something that we all do not know. And I think if you listened to what the president said, he equally touched on the fact that, you know what, we're also trying to benchmark, trying to understand what exactly and how we're supposed to deal with some of these things. But then again, when you expect the government, the very same, I think there's someone who just, someone said at some point in time that, you know, you do not expect much of help from someone who's landed you into that problem. And if you'd ask any other Kenyan, they'll tell you, by the way, the government should have done something prior for us to get to this particular point that we are in. So literally, we might not be able to get much. Also, based on the figures that we're receiving, right in front of the newspaper, you realize that, yes, we are running on empty. So in as much as you'd say that, okay, government, serikali saidia, it is almost impossible for serikali to step in. I think we
Thank you.
are,
Thank
and
you.
like I
we must
said,
hold these people
but then again,
accountable.
yes, we have
It
to. We
is
are not
our
letting them
mandate.
off the hook.
Yeah?
There is no way we're going to let them off the hook because then we are highly dependent on help and aid that comes from the government. When we're talking about this, and it reminds me of what Magufuli said the other day, you know, is just trying to tell the people of Tanzania nothing should bar us from working, focusing, and everything.
Yes,
and then you
yes.
ask yourself, sir, are you even listening to yourself? And I do not have the moral authority to challenge a president.
Yes.
But sincerely speaking, when you hear that, you weep for Africa.
Yeah, yeah, and just to add on before we actually move away from that is that why I'm saying the government can't necessarily do much is that we know the current situation that we are in as a country. We know the levels of resources.
Alan,
Even
please.
if Germany cannot be able to sustain themselves with this, so what makes you think that the government on our end is able to handle it in a better way? So the best thing for you to do, just follow the basic guidelines that have been given by medical practitioners. It will help so that we don't have to bring in the government and get somebody to blame. That's it. I mean, stay home, wash your hands. I mean, just survive to the best of your
I am
capability.
happy that you
Yeah.
mentioned these things, that Kenyans, we are on our own and we will take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
It makes me happy that the person who actually blew the whistle for us to find out that the government was still letting in planes from China, there were reports earlier that this person had been sacked. Linda, have you seen the story?
Yes, I have seen the story. It's actually on one of the dailies, and I think across. I don't even know whether I should be happy for this guy, because then again, this is some tired people that you're dealing with. You know,
But he
someone
has gotten
who,
a new post now.
But listen to this. This is a person who wanted to fire you at some point in time. Then boom, after all this outrage from the public, after all the lawyers, you know, the senior counsels opting to sort of try and go out there and argue your case, because then you came out to sort of sustain or to ensure that you looked into the public interest, then boom, here you are, you're being told that you've been offered another job. And then this very same person says that I do not want to say what job it is because of security purposes. Puts a question mark on it. While we might be celebrating, you know, looking at the fact that he's not been fired, looking at the fact that he's been well represented by Kenyans for once, speaking in one voice, then you need to get worried. But all the same, if it is a genuine, you know, sort of accolade, or if it's a genuine job that he's been given, then well, so be it. We celebrate him and we really wish him nothing but the best, because then, in accordance to what they had said, the people who wanted to fire him, or, you know, the entity that is KQ, right, had said that, you know, he had contravened the orders in
Yeah.
regards to what is enshrined in the Constitution as a work, or, as work
As a-
ethic
as
and
an
all that. But then
organization,
again, you look at the aspect of the Constitution. I think there's an Article 22, that speaks hugely about, the aspect of public interest. So sometimes you might overlook some things in respect of ensuring that the public is well protected. And I want to believe that that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why Kenyans were like, you know what, you saved us a lot.
And it's really amazing to see power back to the people, because this is an organization who have decided to, to terminate this person's services, but the masses have said no. This person is one of us, and I'm really happy about that.
Yes.
Now we are in 2020. And we have come such a long way in terms of technology and innovations. And there are some really interesting things that I have actually seen being done to help curb this virus spread. Alan, I don't know, how have you seen technology being used to help curb the pandemic?
Well, I can say I've really researched on issues that technology is trying to help with regards to this. But I've seen videos around, especially in China, where I don't know if it's true. There's some guards walking with gadgets, just basically trying to measure your temperature and what and stuff. Yeah. So with regards to technology helping, well and good, but what I've actually, the power of technology and the digital face that I've seen help is just how guys are able to share videos and share real life experiences of guys who are actually suffering from corona, and telling people that if this hasn't hit you, then you actually need to now be a little bit serious. Like I recently saw one where there was a lady, I think she was a smoker if I'm not wrong, and she was literally crying on her deathbed and telling these people like, yo, when this hits you, if it hasn't hit you, and sorry, pardon me, if it hits you and you actually start experiencing this, you will need your lungs. That was the touching point of that. Like, you need your lungs. You need your lungs to get through this. So the power of technology, I'm just trying to imagine if this
There have actually been robots.
Back then.
There have been robots. Some of the advanced countries are using robots to fumigate, because at the end of the day, these people, the health workers, other people who are working day in, day out to prevent the spread of this virus, we are actually exposing them. So for us to be able to get robots, and it just shows you how futuristic this thing is going to propel us. So in the next 20, 30 years, some of the technology that is going to be invented right now to help curb this spread. I think I've also seen air purification devices. You've seen those, Linda?
Yes, I have seen that, and I'm sure Keith is itching wherever he might be, whatever it is that he's doing, because then he's that tech-savvy person. But all the same, we're going to try to fit into his shoes. And true to it, I think we've seen all this coming out, and well, those are advanced worlds and all that. I mean, now that it got us flat-footed, everyone is trying to match up and figure out what it is that is going to be done to ensure that we are able to tame this virus. You realize that the use of technology is very important at this crucial time, especially right now. Let's not even go far to the international scene. Let's just look at it locally and see the essence of it right now when students are at home and you're being told that your information is going to be disseminated via the internet, then you have to conduct your studies via the internet and all that. So you realize the essence and the importance of this, so that we do not miss out on anything. And life sort of seems like it moves on a normal basis. So I think it's crucial right now, and there's so much that is happening in the world of technology. If you have gone into understanding, like the latest I think I saw was on the broadband aspect, where they wanted to reduce some level of how they operate. Well, in comparison, yes.
It really got to me, Alan.
Yes.
There is no Netflix and chill. Because
Yo.
Netflix has decided they're going to lower the quality.
Yes.
For yourself.
They're going to lower the quality of the streaming videos just for us to be able, because right now everyone is at home. We are all working from home. Students are learning from home. The broadband cannot fit all this traffic that people are trying to direct to. So Alan, please spare our internet. Please do not go Netflix.
Come on. But Tracy, I mean, just check the stats. How many people use Netflix? People are sharing accounts over here. So
No. Facebook and Instagram as well have actually lowered the quality of their video streams.
That makes sense.
And those are some of the apps that are really ahead in terms of penetration in Kenya. So people are really avid users of Facebook, of Instagram, and we were waiting to see how this is gonna pan out. Because at the end of the day, that is the basic entertainment. And now that we're at home, I don't know, are people idle? I hope people are
Tracy, they said they're going to reduce this. Allow me to say this.
Yeah.
They said they're going to reduce, but then we can only hope that they are able to maintain, quality for the sake of the customers and the clients, because then we are highly dependent on internet. We are highly dependent on all the services that they sort of feel like they would want to reduce or chuck them off completely. So it's almost impossible. The only thing that we can hope for is that they do not push this degrade to a level whereby it's going to be noticeable that yes, quality has gone down and it's noticeable. I hope they play their cards right. It was noticeable with Apple, but then again they were able to sort of revive themselves. So we can only cross fingers that yes, this is not going to sort of get us to that point whereby we're going to feel the pinch as users, because you can imagine how much willing people are to sort of overlook the aspect of having the best of meals, but just be able to get internet, because then information is power. People are doing business via the internet. Technology is key. So yes, while they might do that reduction, I think it's important that they look into the quality aspect.
So I really wish Keith was here, because he's really digital and tech savvy, yeah? But one of the things that really caught my eye on the what's trending topics is COVIDiots. Have you seen the noun? Have you seen the noun COVIDiots?
We need to see that.
I need to see that. I don't know COVIDiots.
The internet, there are actually definitions of who a COVIDiot is. Somebody who has refused, who is being ignorant, who does not want to follow the directives. So I think it's important that we urge ourselves, we continue with hand washing, we continue with social distancing and all these measures that are being put in place for us to be able to curb the spread, because at the end of the day, the fatalities might not be as high as from other diseases, but it is the massive spread that actually makes this virus a pandemic. On that note, I think we'd like to wrap up the show. There's no time, man.
There's no time for us to say something about COVIDiots?
Yo, what do you mean? There's always time.
All right, I think we can push it. Our director is...
just by a minute or so,
it's generous today.
Let's just wind up by saying, be cautious that you're not considered a COVIDiot, because some of these things you're able to deal with, honestly.
Alan,
I mean, for me, same old. Let's just try and be a bit more cautious, because we're living in trying times. You don't necessarily know what might happen, and if you're in a position to actually not spread this to the next person, please just be a bit more considerate, and let's listen to the medical experts. That's the best you can do to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with you. So this is what we will be doing. I'm really interested in seeing how you're spending your, people are calling it quarantine vacation. So while you're at home, I will be sharing some of the videos. How do you spend your day during this quarantine period? So where to send the videos is you tag at TV47KE. My personal handle is at Tracy KE. And tomorrow I'll be sampling some of the videos on what you'll be doing during the quarantine period. But for today, I'm going to leave you with a TikTok video. My name is Tracy Mokami. Thank you so much for keeping us company. See you tomorrow.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Ndina mwana wefwe. Sasa nikulizeko. Umesikia kwa imambo. Ati mbu corona ishafika Kenya. Nandu atiko Nairobi. Na wacha nikwambie kitu moja, sisi huku Bungoma tushajipanga. Mikono tushanawa. I think hii corona ni mboka. Akuona venye wanaweza tu tuambie tu tunawe mikono na hii kitu si chakula. I think corona ni mboka. Mimi nimeshaenda kwa kisiaki, nishasiaka unga yangu, nimeiweka kwa nyumba na ngoja tu igali tu hivi Bungoma na changamukia. Na ndio maana nimekupigia nikuipie siri. Wenda kwa Kisiaki, usiake unga yako, uweke kwa nyumba. Na si unakumbuka ile story ya Nsike? Nsike low caste. Zilikuwa zimeterrorize Kenya lakini venye zilirand tu hivi Bungoma, ushezisikia yako. Tunachangamkia hiyo kitu vizuri. Sawa mkhana wefwe. Lazima nikucha.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms